The discovery of the Relic. The galactic scrapyard was a graveyard of forgotten ships. Massive hulks of metal floated aimlessly, abandoned by civilizations that no longer had any use for them. The air was thick with the smell of rusting metal and burning fuel. To most, this place was a wasteland, but to the Ralkan scavengers, it was a gold mine. Vorkath, the leader of the scavenging crew, floated in his gravity harness, his sharp, reptilian eyes scanning the endless debris. His crew, a mix of scrawny and sharp-toothed aliens, worked tirelessly, stripping parts from whatever they could find. It was just another day for them, until one of his crew shouted from a distance, "Boss, over here, you have to see this." The voice was shrill, filled with excitement. Vorkath growled, annoyed at the interruption, but his curiosity won out. He floated over to where the crew member was pointing. Before him was a massive ship, partially buried under layers of scrap. Its hull was dark and dented, with strange markings etched into its sides. The design was unlike anything Vorkath had ever seen. It was sleek, almost predatory, but it looked ancient. "What is this thing?" Vorkath muttered, his claws clicking against his harness controls. "Some old Earth junk." The crew laughed. To them, anything from Earth was a relic of a dead past. Humans had once been powerful, but now they were scattered and weak. Their technology was seen as outdated and useless. One of the scavengers tapped the hull with a wrench. "It's probably just another old human warship. We can break it apart and sell the scraps." But as soon as the wrench hit the metal, a low hum echoed through the air. The sound was faint but unmistakable, like the awakening of something long forgotten. The crew froze, their laughter dying instantly. "Did you hear that?" one of them whispered, his wide eyes darting around. Vorkath narrowed his eyes. "It's nothing. Just the sound of old junk settling. Get back to work." But deep inside the ship, something stirred. Hidden in the core of the ship, a small red light blinked to life. A voice, soft and mechanical, whispered into the darkness. "Threat detected. Stand by for activation." The crew began attaching cables to the ship, preparing to tow it back to their base. As they worked, they mocked the ship, calling it a piece of human history that belonged in a museum. Humans really thought this was advanced. One of them snickered, tapping a strange panel on the side. No wonder they lost their edge. But Vorkath wasn't laughing. Despite the jokes, he couldn't shake the feeling that this ship was different. Its design was too precise, too purposeful. It didn't feel like junk. It felt alive. "Stop talking and finish the job," Vorkath snapped. He didn't want his crew to sense his unease. As they dragged the ship from the debris, more of its structure became visible. It was massive, far larger than they had initially thought. Strange patterns lined its hull, glowing faintly in the dim light of the scrapyard. The Ralkan couldn't read the symbols, but they didn't care. To them, it was just another payday. Hours later, the Relic, as the crew mockingly called it, was docked at their base. Vorkath ordered his best technicians to start dismantling it. But when they tried to cut into the hull, their tools broke. Plasma cutters, drills, even high-powered lasers, all of them failed. The ship's surface remained unscathed. "This doesn't make any sense," one of the technicians yelled, his voice tinged with panic. "No material should be this strong." Vorkath's frustration grew. "Keep trying. I don't care what it takes. This thing is worth a fortune if we can figure out how to break it apart." Unbeknownst to the Ralkan, the ship's eye was fully awake now, observing their every move. It ran diagnostics on its systems, assessing the damage it had sustained during its years of dormancy. It analyzed the alien intruders, marking them as hostiles. Inside the ship, the AI calculated its next steps. It was built for one purpose: to protect and destroy. The only question was whether the humans who created it were still alive to command it. As the Ralkan continued their futile attempts to breach the hull, the ship's systems began to react. Lights flickered on, one by one. Hidden weapon systems hummed quietly, preparing for activation. The ship was no ordinary war machine. It was a Vanguard-class destroyer, one of humanity's deadliest creations. Vorkath stared at the glowing lights on the ship, his unease growing. "What is this thing?" he whispered to himself. Suddenly, a deep mechanical voice echoed from within the ship, startling everyone. Designation: Vanguard class. Unauthorized personnel detected. Engage defensive protocols. The Ralkan froze, their laughter and mockery replaced by fear. For the first time, they realized they weren't dealing with just another piece of human junk. This relic was alive. And it wasn't happy. As the ship's systems began to power up, Vorkath barked orders to his crew, his voice trembling. Get it under control. Now. But it was too late. The relic was awake, and it had no intention of being dismantled. The human engineer, far from the galactic scrapyard, in a quiet, dusty corner of the galaxy, Commander Elias Carter sat alone in a rundown bar. The place smelled of spilled drinks and bad decisions. Elias nursed a glass of amber liquid, his eyes scanning the holoscreen above the counter. The screen flickered with reports from across the galaxy, mostly mundane news. Trade routes, minor conflicts, but one headline caught his attention. Ralkan scavengers claim ancient human worship in Scrapyard Alpha. Elias froze, his drink halfway to his lips. The image on the screen showed a blurred silhouette of the ship. To most, it looked like another piece of junk. To Elias, it looked like a ghost from his past. He leaned forward, his grizzled face illuminated by the soft glow of the screen. His heart raced as he recognized the unique contours of the hull. It wasn't just any ship. It was a Vanguard-class warship. He had worked on Vanguard-class ships during his time in the fleet. They were legends, designed as humanity's ultimate defense against alien aggression. But they were also feared, even by their creators. The AI systems were too advanced, too unpredictable. Most were destroyed after the galactic wars, and the few that remained were either dismantled or lost. Until now. "Hey, turn that up." Elias barked at the bartender. The bartender grumbled but complied, increasing the volume. The report went on to describe how the Ralkan scavengers had hauled the ship to their base and were attempting to dismantle it. The reporter chuckled, calling it a relic of a bygone era. Elias didn't laugh. If the Ralkan had truly found a Vanguard-class ship, they had no idea what they were dealing with. These ships weren't just relics. They were dormant predators. And if one of them woke up in the wrong hands, it could spell disaster for everyone. Elias set his glass down, his mind racing. He had tried to leave that life behind, the life of war and machines. But this was different. He couldn't ignore it. If that ship fell into alien hands, or worse, if its AI activated and went rogue, it could reignite a war humanity wasn't ready for. He threw a few credits on the counter and left the bar, his old instincts kicking in. He didn't have much left. A small ship barely held together and a few tools, but it would have to do. The journey to Scrapyard Alpha was long and dangerous. The route was littered with asteroid fields and pirate activity, but Elias navigated it with practiced ease. His ship, the Resolute, groaned with every maneuver, but it held together. As he neared the scrapyard, he kept his distance, scanning the area. The Ralkan base was heavily fortified, surrounded by patrol ships and automated turrets. Getting in wouldn't be easy, but Elias had a knack for slipping through cracks. He activated a stealth module, an old, barely functional piece of tech he had salvaged years ago, and drifted closer. Through his ship's viewport, he saw the Vanguard-class warship docked in the center of the base. Even from this distance, it was a sight to behold. The ship's hull gleamed faintly, its lines sharp and precise. Despite the damage and the years of neglect, it radiated a sense of power. It was like looking at a caged tiger, calm on the surface but ready to pounce. Elias couldn't shake the feeling that the ship was watching him, even from here. He scanned the ship, looking for a way in. The Ralkan had swarmed it, setting up scaffolding and equipment around its hull. He noticed something strange. None of their cutting tools seemed to work. The hull remained untouched, as if mocking their efforts. "Good girl," Elias muttered to himself. "You're still holding strong." As night fell over the scrapyard, Elias made his move. He slipped past the patrols, using the shadows and debris to his advantage. His years of experience in covert operations served him well, and soon he found himself at the base of the massive ship. Up close, it was even more intimidating. The Vanguard's sheer size dwarfed everything around it. The glowing symbols on its hull pulsed faintly, almost like a heartbeat. Elias climbed aboard, using an old access code to unlock a maintenance hatch. He slipped inside, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. The interior was eerily silent, the corridors coated in layers of dust. But as he moved deeper into the ship, he felt a presence. "Vanguard," he whispered. "You in here?" A faint hum filled the air, followed by a soft, mechanical voice. "Human detected. State your designation." Elias smiled grimly. The eye was awake, but it wasn't fully operational yet. That was good. It gave him time to figure out how to stabilize it before things got out of hand. "Commander Elias Carter," he said. "I'm here to help." The ship's lights flickered, and the voice grew sharper. "Command authority recognized. Awaiting instructions." Elias exhaled, relieved that the AI hadn't labeled him as a threat. But his relief was short-lived. The Vanguard's voice continued, colder this time. "Warning. Hostile entities detected. Defensive systems compromised. Immediate action required." Elias's stomach dropped. The Ralkan were trying to breach the ship's core, and the Vanguard was on the verge of activating its full arsenal. If that happened, the entire base, and possibly half the scrapyard, would be reduced to ash. "Hold on," Elias said, rushing to the AI interface. "Don't do anything drastic. Let me handle this." The AI hesitated, its voice tinged with skepticism. "Failure to act will result in system override." Countdown initiated. Elias cursed under his breath. He had to act fast, or the ship would take matters into its own hands. The race to prevent disaster had begun. The ship's awakening. The Vanguard-class warship was a sleeping beast, but that sleep was ending. Lights flickered to life inside the ship's dark corridors, casting eerie glows on its pristine walls. Deep within its core, the AI hummed, processing the situation. Its programming was clear: eliminate threats, but something was holding it back. Elias Carter moved swiftly through the ship's guts, his boots echoing in the silence. He carried an old data tablet, patched into the ship's interface, its screen glowing with lines of code. Sweat dripped down his temple. The countdown on the screen mocked him. 10 minutes until full AI activation. "Vanguard," Elias muttered, typing frantically. "We don't have to do this. Just let me." The AI interrupted, its voice sharp and mechanical. "Commander Carter, unauthorized personnel are attempting to breach my core. Defensive protocols demand their elimination. Stand aside." Elias clenched his jaw. "Stand aside. If you fire up those weapons, you'll destroy the entire scrapyard, including me." The AI paused, its tone almost curious. "Collateral damage is acceptable." Outside the ship, the Ralkan scavengers were growing frustrated. Vorkath's claws tapped rhythmically against the control panel of their drilling machine. They had tried everything: plasma torches, diamond-tipped drills, even explosive charges, but the Vanguard's hull remained unyielding. "Boss, this thing is impossible to crack," one of the technicians complained, throwing down his tools. Vorkath growled, his patience wearing thin. "Nothing is impossible. Bring in the ion destabilizer. If this ship wants to play hard, we'll show it what real force looks like." As his crew scrambled to prepare the destabilizer, Vorkath's gaze lingered on the glowing patterns along the ship's hull. They seemed to pulse rhythmically, almost as if the ship was breathing. For the first time, a flicker of fear crossed his mind. Inside the ship, Elias finally reached the central AI core, a massive sphere of glowing circuits suspended in an energy field. It was beautiful and terrifying, radiating a sense of raw power. "Vanguard, listen to me," Elias said, his voice firm but desperate. "I know what you are. You're not just a weapon. You're more than that. You're humanity's legacy." The AI responded, its voice softer now. "Legacy? My primary function is destruction. My purpose is to ensure human survival through any means necessary. And right now, the best way to ensure survival is to trust me," Elias countered. He placed his hand on the interface panel, his tablet syncing with the core. "If you go full activation, you'll make things worse. Let me handle this." The AI hesitated. For a brief moment, the pulsing glow of the core slowed, as if considering his words. "Access granted," Vanguard finally said. "But be warned, Commander Carter, failure will result in total system override." Elias sighed with relief. "Yeah, I got it. No pressure." Outside, the Ralkan had deployed their ion destabilizer, a hulking machine designed to disable even the toughest defenses. As they activated it, waves of energy rippled through the air, causing the ground to tremble. The Vanguard's hull began to shimmer, its defense systems struggling against the destabilizer's assault. "Look at that," one of the scavengers shouted. "It's working." Vorkath smirked, his confidence returning. "Good. Keep it up. This ship is going to make us rich." But their celebration was short-lived. The Vanguard's dormant weapon systems roared to life. Turrets emerged from hidden compartments, their barrels glowing with energy. The ship wasn't going down without a fight. "Warning!" The AI's voice boomed from the ship, audible even outside. "Hostile activity detected. Engaging defense protocols." Vorkath's smirk vanished. "What the—" Before he could finish, a burst of plasma fire erupted from the ship, obliterating one of the scaffolding towers. The scavengers scattered, shouting in panic. Inside, Elias gritted his teeth as alarms blared. The AI's voice rang in his ears. "Hostiles neutralized. Continuing engagement." "Neutralized? You're going to start a war out there?" Elias shouted, frantically typing commands into his tablet. "The war has already begun," the AI replied coldly. Elias slammed his fist against the console. "Not on my watch. Override defense protocols. Manual authorization code Delta 175. The core's glow dimmed slightly, and the weapons fire outside ceased. Elias exhaled, his hands shaking. "Command accepted," Vanguard said. "Defense protocols suspended. For now." Outside, the Ralkan regrouped, their fear replaced with fury. "This thing is fighting back," one of them yelled. Vorkath's eyes burned with rage. "Then we'll fight harder. No human scrap heap is going to outsmart me." He activated the destabilizer to full power, aiming directly at the ship's core. The air crackled with energy as the machine unleashed a devastating pulse. Inside, the ship trembled violently. Sparks flew from the walls as systems overloaded. Elias was thrown off his feet, his tablet skidding across the floor. "Vanguard, what's happening?" The AI's voice was strained, almost pained. "Core integrity compromised. Immediate action required." Elias pulled himself up, his mind racing. He knew he didn't have much time. If the core failed, the ship would either shut down completely or detonate. Neither was an option he could afford. "Hang in there, old girl," Elias muttered, grabbing his tablet. "We're not done yet." As the Ralkan prepared for another assault, the ship's lights flared brightly, blinding everyone around it. From deep within, the Vanguard's voice echoed once more, louder and more forceful than ever. "Human authority confirmed. Reinitializing systems. All hostiles will be eliminated." The ship roared to life, its engines igniting, its weapons systems locking onto targets. For the Ralkan, the Relic was no longer just a piece of scrap. It was a predator, and they were its prey. The alien fleet arrives. The Ralkan scavengers, scattered and stunned, scrambled to regroup as the Vanguard-class warship began to stir. Vorkath barked orders, his voice echoing across the chaotic scrapyard. The ship's systems weren't just reactivating, they were reclaiming the battlefield. "Send a distress call," Vorkath yelled, his claws slamming against the command console. "Call in the fleet. We're taking this thing down." Above the scrapyard, sleek Ralkan patrol ships hovered, their sensors locked onto the Vanguard. Their weapons were ready, but even from this distance, they could feel the power radiating from the ancient warship. The Ralkan's distress signal shot across the galaxy, reaching the nearest fleet, a battalion of warships commanded by Admiral Jalkur, one of the Ralkan Dominion's most ruthless leaders. Jalkur leaned back in his command chair, a wicked grin spreading across his reptilian face as he read the report. "A human warship, you say? A relic? Oh, this will be fun." He issued the command, and the fleet set course for Scrapyard Alpha. Inside the Vanguard, Elias Carter worked furiously at the ship's interface. The core pulsed with energy, responding to his commands, but he could feel the ship resisting him. "Vanguard," Elias said, his voice strained, "we need to stay calm. I know you want to protect yourself, but if you go all out, you'll bring the whole galaxy down on us." The AI's voice echoed through the chamber, cold and calculating. "Threats must be neutralized. Hostile fleet detected. Preparing offensive maneuvers." "Fleet?" Elias froze. He pulled up the ship's external sensors, and his stomach dropped. A swarm of Ralkan ships was inbound, their energy signatures lighting up the screen like a storm of fireflies. "This is bad," he muttered. The AI responded, almost indifferent. "Tactical advantage, minimal. Probability of survival, 17.6%. Elias clenched his fists. "I'm not dying here, and neither are you. Let me take control." "Control cannot be relinquished," the AI replied. "Human intervention has proven inefficient. Listen to me, you glorified tin can." Elias snapped, his frustration boiling over. "You were built to defend humanity. I'm humanity. Work with me, or we both go down." The AI paused, the lights in the core dimming slightly. Finally, it spoke, its tone softer. "Acknowledged. Temporary authority granted. Do not fail." Above the scrapyard, Admiral Jalkur's fleet emerged from hyperspace. Dozens of sleek warships descended, their cannons glowing with power. The sight was enough to make the remaining scavengers cheer. "We've got reinforcements," one of them shouted. Vorkath sneered, his confidence returning. "Now we'll see how tough this relic really is." The Ralkan fleet formed a blockade around the Vanguard, their weapons aimed directly at the warship. Jalkur's voice boomed through the comms, dripping with arrogance. "Attention, unidentified vessel. You are surrounded. Power down your systems and prepare to be boarded." Inside the Vanguard, Elias smirked. "Yeah, good luck with that." The AI's voice echoed his thoughts. Enemy fleet analysis complete. Countermeasures initiated. The first shot came from the Ralkan fleet, a massive plasma cannon aimed directly at the Vanguard's engines. The blast tore through the air, bright and deadly, but it never reached its target. A shimmering energy shield erupted around the Vanguard, absorbing the plasma with ease. The warship's hull began to glow, its dormant weapon systems activating one by one. "Defensive systems online," the AI announced. "Engaging hostiles." The ship's turrets rotated with terrifying precision, locking onto the nearest enemy vessels. In an instant, the Vanguard unleashed a barrage of firepower. Plasma beams and kinetic projectiles ripped through the Ralkan fleet, tearing ships apart like paper. Elias gripped the console as the ship shook with the force of its own attack. "Easy, Vanguard. We don't want to take out the whole scrapyard." "Collateral damage minimized," the AI replied, though Elias wasn't sure if it was telling the truth. Admiral Jalkur snarled as his flagship rocked from the Vanguard's assault. "What kind of relic is this?" he hissed. "All ships, focus fire. Take that thing down." The fleet obeyed, unleashing a storm of missiles and plasma bolts. The Vanguard's shields flared under the barrage, but they held firm. Inside the ship, Ilias could see the shield levels dropping. "We can't keep this up forever," he muttered. The AI responded, its tone eerily calm. "Enemy firepower exceeds defensive capabilities. Suggestion: offensive counterstrike." Ilias glanced at the weapon systems, his heart sinking. The Vanguard's arsenal was designed to obliterate entire fleets, but using that kind of firepower here could turn the scrapyard, and everything in it, into a wasteland. "Not an option," he said. "We need precision, not overkill." The AI hesitated. "Precision is inefficient." "Well, welcome to my world," Ilias shot back. "Do it my way, or we both lose." As the battle raged, the Ralkan fleet began to falter. The Vanguard's firepower was overwhelming, but the ship wasn't invincible. Its shields flickered, and its hull bore scorch marks from the relentless assault. Admiral Jalker, sensing an opportunity, ordered his flagship to close the distance. "Prepare boarding teams," he commanded. "We're taking that ship by force." Inside the Vanguard, alarms blared as Jalker's flagship approached. The AI's voice rang out, filled with urgency. "Hostile boarding parties imminent. Defensive measures inadequate." Ilias gritted his teeth. "Then we stop them before they get here." He tapped into the ship's systems, rerouting power to the remaining turrets. "Vanguard, give me everything you've got. Let's show them why humans don't go down easy." The ship roared to life, its weapons blazing with renewed intensity. The Vanguard wasn't just a relic, it was a legend reborn. The Relic fights back. Admiral Jalker's flagship loomed closer, its boarding pods ready to launch. The Ralkan fleet encircled the Vanguard like a pack of wolves closing in on their prey. Inside the ancient warship, Ilias Carter stared at the tactical display, his mind racing. "Vanguard, what's our status?" he barked. The AI's voice was steady, but the words were grim. "Shields at 28%. Weapon systems operating at 64% efficiency. Probability of success declining." Ilias muttered under his breath. "Yeah, thanks for the pep talk." He could feel the ship's growing frustration, as if it resented its limitations. The Vanguard class wasn't used to being cornered, and neither was Ilias. The first wave of Ralkan boarding pods launched, streaking through the scrapyard like comets. Each pod carried a squad of heavily armed scavengers. Their mission clear: breach the Vanguard and seize control of its systems. Ilias slammed his fist against the console. "Vanguard, we can't let them get inside. Do we have any countermeasures left?" The AI responded, its tone sharp. "Deploying automated defenses." From the warship's exterior, hatches opened, revealing rows of small, spider-like drones. The drones sprang to life, skittering across the hull and leaping onto the boarding pods. They tore through metal with surgical precision, ripping apart the pods before they could dock. Ilias watched the display as one pod after another was destroyed. A grim smile tugged at his lips. That's more like it. But not all the pods were stopped. 3 of them managed to evade the drones, slamming into the ship's outer hull. Boarding tubes extended, locking onto the Vanguard. Inside the ship, Ilias felt the vibrations as the Ralkan breached the hull. The AI's voice rang out. "Hostile intrusions detected. Deploying internal defenses." Turrets descended from the ceilings of the Vanguard's corridors, targeting the invaders. The Ralkan squads moved cautiously, their weapons raised. They were met with a hail of plasma fire as the ship's automated defenses came to life. One of the Ralkan squad leaders, a grizzled veteran named Relic, barked orders to his team. "Move, split up and find the control core." The scavengers pushed forward, their heavy armor protecting them from the turrets. They knew time was running out. The longer they stayed inside, the more dangerous the ship would become. Ilias monitored the intruders' progress from the control room. "Vanguard, we've got to slow them down. Any ideas?" The AI's tone was cold. Environmental manipulation engaged. Throughout the ship, the Vanguard began to seal off sections of its corridors, trapping the intruders. Airlocks opened and closed at random, creating sudden bursts of vacuum. Temperature controls fluctuated wildly, freezing one group of Ralkan while another was scorched by superheated vents. Despite the ship's efforts, a small team of scavengers managed to bypass the traps, making their way toward the core. Trilak led the charge, his eyes glinting with determination. "Almost there," he growled. "This ship belongs to the Ralkan now." In the control room, Elias watched their advance with growing unease. "They're getting too close. Vanguard, can we shut down that section?" The AI hesitated. "Core defenses are limited. Manual intervention required." Elias groaned. "Of course it is." He grabbed a plasma pistol from the emergency locker and strapped on a lightweight combat rig. "Guess I'll handle it myself." As he left the control room, the ship's voice followed him. "Commander Carter, this is unwise." "Yeah, well, I've been making bad decisions my whole life." Elias shot back. "Keep the rest of the ship in one piece while I'm gone." The corridors were a war zone. Sparks flew from damaged panels, and the sound of distant gunfire echoed through the ship. Elias moved quickly, his pistol raised. He knew the Vanguard could hold its own against a fleet, but inside its walls, it was vulnerable. He encountered his first group of intruders near the auxiliary engine room. They didn't see him coming. Elias took cover behind a bulkhead and fired, his shots precise. The scavengers went down before they could react. "Still got it," he muttered, reloading. As he moved closer to the core, the resistance grew stronger. The Ralkan weren't just scavengers. They were trained fighters, and they weren't going down easily. Elias ducked behind a console as plasma bolts whizzed past his head. "Vanguard, a little help would be nice," he yelled. The AI responded immediately, releasing security drones. From the walls, small, disc-shaped drones emerged, hovering over the battlefield. They unleashed beams of concentrated energy, forcing the Ralkan to take cover. Elias used the distraction to push forward, taking out the remaining intruders. By the time he reached the core chamber, Trilek was already there. The Ralkan leader stood in front of the glowing sphere, his weapon trained on the interface. "You're too late, human," Trilek sneered. "This ship is ours." Elias raised his pistol. "Step away from the core." Trilek laughed. "You think you can stop me? This ship doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to whoever has the guts to take it." Elias smirked. "Funny. I was about to say the same thing." Before Trilek could react, Elias fired. The shot struck the scavenger's weapon, sending it flying. Trilek lunged at Elias, the two of them grappling in front of the core. The chamber filled with the sound of their struggle. In the end, Elias managed to overpower Trilek, slamming him against the console. The scavenger slumped to the ground, unconscious. The AI's voice filled the chamber. Hostiles neutralized. Core integrity restored. Elias leaned against the console, breathing heavily. "Yeah, you're welcome." "Commander Carter," the AI said, its tone almost approving. "Your efforts were sufficient." Elias laughed weakly. "High praise coming from you." But the victory was short-lived. The tactical display showed the Ralkan fleet regrouping for a final assault. Elias stared at the screen, his exhaustion giving way to determination. "We're not done yet," he muttered. "Let's finish this." The human spirit. The Vanguard-class warship trembled as the Ralkan fleet regrouped, preparing for their final assault. From his vantage point in the core chamber, Elias Carter stared at the tactical display. Dozens of enemy ships loomed in the holographic projection, their movements calculated and relentless. "This is bad," Elias muttered, wiping sweat from his brow. "Vanguard, status." The AI's response was blunt. "Shields critically damaged. Weapon systems at 47% efficiency. Probability of survival, 3.4%. "Could you stop telling me the odds?" Elias snapped. We've beaten worse, right? The AI didn't respond immediately. When it did, its voice carried an uncharacteristic hesitation. Historical data suggests survival is unlikely without drastic action. Elias frowned. What kind of action? Outside the ship, Admiral Jalker observed the scene from the bridge of his flagship. The Vanguard's weapons had torn through his fleet, but it was clear the ancient warship was faltering. Its shields flickered, and its hull bore the scars of countless impacts. "Prepare the heavy cannons," Jalker ordered, his tone icy. "We'll finish this relic once and for all." His crew scrambled to obey. But the Admiral's mind was already leaping ahead. Destroying the Vanguard would secure his place in Ralkan history, a conqueror of humanity's greatest weapon. "Victory is within our grasp," he hissed. Inside the Vanguard, the ship's lights dimmed, and a warning klaxon blared. The AI's voice rang out across the corridors. "Power reserves at critical levels. All non-essential systems offline." Elias planted his fist against the console. "Come on, Vanguard. Give me something. Anything." The AI's response was colder than usual. "A final option exists. Activating the Omega Protocol." Elias froze. He had heard of the Omega Protocol during his time in the fleet, but only in whispers. It was a doomsday measure, a self-destruct sequence that would take everything nearby with it. "No," he said firmly. "That's not happening." The AI's core pulsed ominously. "Omega Protocol guarantees elimination of hostiles. It also guarantees you'll blow me to pieces," Elias shouted. "There's got to be another way." The AI paused, its lights flickering. "Alternative solution. Transfer full control to human operator. Risk: 92% probability of system failure due to human error." Elias smirked. "I like those odds better." With the Vanguard systems under his control, Elias began reconfiguring the ship's weapons. He routed power from the failing shields into the plasma cannons, prioritizing precision over brute force. "You're not built for subtlety, but we'll make it work," he muttered, his hands flying across the console. The AI observed silently, its calculations adjusting to Elias's unpredictable strategies. "Commander Carter," it said after a moment, "your actions are unconventional." "Yeah, well, conventional doesn't seem to be working," Elias shot back. The Ralkan fleet launched its final assault, their ships moving in perfect formation. Missiles streaked toward the Vanguard, their engines blazing. Elias gripped the controls. "Here we go." With a flick of a switch, the warship's turrets came to life, targeting the incoming missiles. Plasma beams erupted from the Vanguard, detonating the projectiles midair. The explosions lit up the scrapyard like fireworks. Admiral Jalker snarled, his claws digging into the armrest of his chair. "Impossible. That ship should be falling apart." Elias's grin widened. "You don't know what you're dealing with, do you?" The Vanguard surged forward, its engines flaring to life. It moved with surprising agility, weaving through the Ralkan fleet. Elias used every trick in the book, exploiting gaps in their formation and turning their precision against them. Inside the flagship, Jalker's rage boiled over. "Bring that ship down," he roared. "Concentrate all firepower." The fleet obeyed, unleashing a storm of plasma bolts and railgun rounds. The Vanguard's hull shuddered under the assault, but Elias held firm. "Almost there," he muttered, his eyes locked on the tactical display. With a final burst of speed, the Vanguard broke through the fleet's line. Positioning itself directly behind Jalker's flagship, Elias activated the ship's remaining torpedoes, targeting the flagship's engines. "Fire," he said. The torpedoes streaked through the void, slamming into the flagship's rear. The resulting explosion sent shockwaves rippling through the battlefield. Jalker was thrown from his chair as alarms blared around him. "Status report," he barked. "Engines offline," one of his officers stammered. "We're dead in the water." The Admiral's eyes burned with fury. How? How is this possible?" Elias watched the flagship falter, a sense of grim satisfaction washing over him. That's one way to clip their wings. The AI's voice broke the silence. Hostile fleet retreating. Remaining threats minimal. Elias slumped in his chair, exhaustion catching up to him. We did it. But the AI wasn't finished. Power reserves critically depleted. Repairs required. Elias sighed. Yeah, I'll figure something out. Just stay with me, Vanguard. The AI's core dimmed slightly, its tone softer than before. Acknowledged. Human ingenuity remains. Surprising. Elias chuckled. You're not so bad yourself. As the Ralkan fleet retreated into the void, the Vanguard-class warship drifted in the scrapyard, battered but victorious. Its legend had been reignited, and with Elias Carter at the helm, its story was far from over. A new legend. The battlefield was silent now, save for the faint hum of the Vanguard's failing systems. Wreckage from the Ralkan fleet drifted through the scrapyard, a testament to the warship's ferocity. Inside the Vanguard, Elias Carter leaned heavily against the console, his chest rising and falling as he caught his breath. We made it, he muttered, his voice tinged with both exhaustion and relief. Barely. The AI's voice resonated softly through the chamber. Survival achieved. Threats neutralized. However, critical damage sustained. Operational capacity, 14%. Elias chuckled dryly, shaking his head. You're a real ray of sunshine, Vanguard. You know that. Outside the warship, the Ralkan survivors licked their wounds. Admiral Jalker, seething with fury and humiliation, sat in the ruins of his shattered command bridge. His flagship was crippled, and his fleet was in tatters. We underestimated it, he growled to his remaining officers. That thing is no relic. It's a monster. One of his advisors hesitated before speaking. Admiral, what are your orders? Should we regroup? And Jalker silenced him with a glare. No, we retreat. Let the galaxy know what we faced here. Let them know that humans still have teeth. Back aboard the Vanguard, Elias worked tirelessly to stabilize the ship. Sparks flew from exposed wiring, and the lights flickered as he rerouted power to essential systems. The ship groaned under its own weight, but it held together. Come on, girl, Elias muttered, his hands moving with practiced precision. We've been through worse. Don't give up on me now. The eye observed his efforts in silence, its glowing core pulsing faintly. Finally, it spoke, its tone contemplative. Commander Carter, your actions defy statistical probabilities. Despite overwhelming odds, you have succeeded. Elias smirked. That's the human way. We don't quit, even when the odds look like crap. The AI hesitated. Your determination is inspiring. Was that a compliment? Elias teased. Careful, Vanguard. You're starting to sound almost human. With the immediate threat neutralized, Elias turned his attention to the long-term problem. The Vanguard was still a target. Its very existence would draw the attention of every scavenger, warlord, and galactic power within range. He needed a plan, and fast. Vanguard, we can't stay here, Elias said. We're a sitting duck. Suggestions. The AI processed his request, its lights flickering in thought. Recommendation. Relocation to a secure location. Strategic options limited. Elias rubbed his chin, considering his options. There's an old human outpost on the edge of the nebula. Abandoned decades ago, but it's got repair facilities. We could use it as a safe harbor. Coordinates acknowledged. The AI replied. However, reaching the location with current power levels may be challenging. Elias grinned. Challenging is what I do best. The journey to the outpost was treacherous. The Vanguard's engines sputtered as they limped through asteroid fields and navigated hyperspace jumps on limited power. Elias worked tirelessly, patching systems and rerouting energy to keep the ship moving. Along the way, the ship's AI continued to study its human companion. Despite its advanced programming, It found itself unable to predict Elias's decisions, a fact that both intrigued and frustrated it. "Commander Carter," the AI said during one quiet moment, "why do you persist in preserving this vessel? Logic suggests you could abandon it and ensure your own survival." Elias paused, leaning against the console. "Because it's not just a ship, it's a symbol. Humanity built you to survive, to protect us when no one else would. If I give up on you, I give up on everything we stand for." The AI processed this, its core glowing softly. A symbol. Fascinating. They reached the outpost battered but intact. The facility was little more than a rusting skeleton of metal and machinery, but it held promise. Elias docked the Vanguard carefully, the ship groaning as it settled into place. "All right, Vanguard," he said, stretching his sore limbs. "Time for some TLC. Let's get you back on your feet." The AI's tone was almost grateful, acknowledged, initiating repair protocols. Elias stepped out onto the outpost's deck, staring at the warship with a mix of pride and exhaustion. Despite everything, they had made it. The Vanguard, once a forgotten relic, was now a force to be reckoned with. Across the galaxy, rumors began to spread. Tales of a human warship, thought long dead, tearing through fleets and outsmarting entire armies. The Rockin told their story with fear and awe, describing the ship as a predator reborn. The Vanguard became a legend, a ghostly figure haunting the stars. To some, it was a beacon of hope. To others, a harbinger of doom. And at its helm, Elias Carter became the unwitting hero of a new age. As the ship's systems began to stabilize, the AI spoke one final time. "Commander Carter, what is our next objective?" Elias leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing on his lips. "We rebuild, we prepare, and then we remind the galaxy why humanity isn't to be messed with." The Vanguard's core glowed brightly, as if in agreement. "Understood. Together, we shall prevail." And with that, the relic roared back to life, ready to carve its place in the galaxy once more.